Hello. Hey everyone, how's it going? Sorry for the glitch. We're at YouTube Live, and for some reason the YouTube did not turn live on the scheduled time. So thank you very much, Larry Page, for that. That was a good sound check. No, I got perfect. How many users do we have on?
Currently have 11 watching.
Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to Kanetix Insurance Canada YouTube live stream. Thanks for your patience. We had a bit of a glitch. It was supposed to go live automatically by YouTube, but that didn't happen. And so we apologize that we had to send you a new link. How many users do we have on there? 16. Should we get started, Patrick?
Let's get going.
Yeah, great.
Thank you again for your patience, and welcome to the Insurance Canada webinar series. My name is Patrick Weiss. I'm a partner at Insurance-Canada.ca Incorporated. Thanks for joining us today for a live stream webinar on a critical topic for anyone who is implementing InsurTech. This is being recorded, and we will send you at the end of this a link along with an evaluation form. We really appreciate your feedback on this. The formal presentation is going to run approximately 40 minutes. We'll have Q&A period at the end. However, if you have any questions as we go along, please key them in and we will address them immediately. Today we're pleased to be at the Kanetix studio in Toronto's vibrant entertainment district. Our topic today is optimizing human digital interaction for InsurTech success by utilizing A/B testing and conversion rate optimization. This sounds like a daunting proposition, but we have two very experienced humans who will lead us to digital success. On my very far left, we have Andrew Lowe, who is President and CEO of Kanetix Ltd., and my immediate left is Janine White, Vice President of Marketplaces for Kanetix Ltd. So, Andrew, let me turn this over to you to begin.
Yeah, thank you very much, Patrick. I'm hoping this live stream is coming through very clearly. Here at Kanetix, we do quite a bit of live streaming directly to our consumer audience, educating them on insurance. And we have a studio here with a bit of a mini audience right now. So please type in your questions and we'll get to them right away. We'll keep this presentation interactive. There should be a chat box. If you're live streaming this from your phone, there should be a chat box near the bottom. And if you're on the desktop, there's a chat box near the side. And we've got a bunch of helpers here helping us to make sure those questions are super visible. And we'll answer them as we go through the presentations. Let's keep it interactive. So my topic, do we have the presentation up on the screen yet? Great. So the topic here is optimize human digital interaction. Yeah, it's a daunting topic, but it's not very, very complex, and I assure you we'll make it as simple as possible, and it's very easy and affordable for any insurance company, insurance provider to implement. So first, a little bit about Kanetix, because I'm sure you don't all know what we do, but we're essentially an InsurTech company, and we're Canada's largest digital customer and consumer acquisition platform for insurance. And we use InsurTech to do that. And so as many of you know, we do a lot of online consumers, and those consumers could be shopping for car insurance or commercial insurance as well. And we started the organization as an InsurTech to compare car insurance on the web, but it's expanded to all types of insurance, including travel, commercial, life, health, etc. But over the course of building the technology on the web and being online, we had to learn how to optimize the human digital experience. And we've been doing that since 1999, and that's why we get a lot of users really engaged on our websites and going through the funnel and shopping and comparing prices, and then ultimately buying via digital means. We also have a brokerage, and that brokerage helps broker carriers and MGAs bring their digital products online. And of course, we build products ourselves in our SaaS technology group. We build both internal systems for insurance as well as direct-to-consumer systems for insurance. And more recently, we have a Kanetix digital practice to make sure this conversion rate optimization happens. So this is a very valuable presentation on that front. When it comes to how do we test to more revenue, how do we test in order to grow the customer base, how do we test to grow the business? And of course, we have lots of data and analytics. We use data and analytics for all of our testing and optimization. And we're all about, ultimately, we have the same goal as every other insurance provider, that is help Canadians make better money decisions when it comes to their insurance. So back to the main topic at hand, we're here to talk about optimizing your optimization. So I know everyone who has InsurTech probably believes that they optimize, but what I'm talking about here is taking your optimization to the next level, taking that conversion rate to the next level. It is the only way you're going to make your InsurTech a success. So when I talk about InsurTech, I know most of the audience here knows Kanetix as doing things direct to consumer. But when I talk about InsurTech in this case, it's going to be both direct to consumer InsurTech, so a web user experience, but also any technology you decide to build internally, whether it's a new underwriting tool, whether it's an internal system or a calculation process, whether it's something to do with policy management and renewals, etc. All of this requires A/B testing and optimization in order to make sure when you have users interacting with the technology that you're giving them the best possible experience as a result of highest possible engagement and therefore getting closer and closer to reaching your operating metrics. So what do I mean by conversion rate optimization? So I'm going to take it down to the web. So this works with any technology. Again, it could be a web-based technology you use in your back end, or it could be the web technology that you expose directly to your customer, whether it's a self-serve platform, whether it's getting an insurance quote online, etc. So when we talk about optimization, we're talking about two things. One is we have a control, which is your system that's currently in place, and then we have a variation, which is the B. So that's why we say it's A/B testing. So A is the original version, B is the new version that you want to try, and presumably has enhancements in it, etc. And what we do is apply traffic, and traffic means users, customers, etc. And then we see who's the winner, right? And the winner means, well, if I've got a particular screen in my system, the winner, I have a conversion rate, and that conversion rate represents my click-through to the next step. And so we measure that. And so in this example here, the A shows, there's 37% or 23% click-through to the next step. But the winner, B, has a much higher click-through to the next step. And this is the same with this internal system. It could be like, you're online and, of course, if users drop off in the middle of a quoting process or a purchase process in your e-commerce sites, that's bad, right? So you want them to go through. But that's the same with any internal system. Your staff, your employees using an underwriting platform could be frustrated and not working as effectively or making the right decisions because your platform is clunky. And A/B testing will help you optimize your way through that. And so what is the goals of testing? Well, it's really to take all of your technology and create a funnel and model it. And so this is an example funnel of a car insurance quote where you have the home page, and then you enter vehicle information, personal details, etc. And then you measure the traffic going in at the top. Let's say it's 100,000 users, but your technology is clunky, and so half of that drop off the next step, and then half of that drop off the next step after that, giving a fairly poor conversion rate of 1.08. And so that's actually a poor number in terms of sales. But imagine you take that up 1 or 2 more percentage points when you have a lot of users on a system. That can make a remarkable amount of difference. So let me show you some examples. The goals of testing, of course, is to increase that conversion. And conversion could be conversion to a sale, additional engagement or operational effectiveness in your organization. And you want to use this testing to validate hypothesis. A hypothesis could mean a blue button was more effective than the red button, and that increased the conversion rate. And so you want to use A/B testing to test that. Never assume that you're right without testing it with your users. And then you want to discover valuable segments, et cetera. And I always put up this slide. You may have, I'm guilty of this as president and CEO that says, hey, we got to do this. I believe it's going to convert more users, or our users are going to like it a lot better. But ultimately, we want to use data, right? And so I'm never afraid to admit, well, I suggested that test, but it didn't work. Actually resulted in poor conversion, but I'm glad I had the data to show it. But always use the data to make your insurance decisions.
So Andrew, how long would you run one of these tests or prove a hypothesis?
Yeah, that's a great question. It determines how many users you have is how long you need to run the test, because you need a good number of users to gather the data, right? And I'm not talking about thousands of users, it could be hundreds of users, but I'm going to go through in the subsequent slide, actually Janine's going to go through how we can predict a conversion rate, whether that's going to be a win or loss with a smaller number of users using a formula related to probability and statistics. So we're really smart about trying to make decisions faster. And this slide here shows the conversion differs by segment, right? And so you want to, as you get more sophisticated in your A/B testing, especially when it comes to online, the segment, the user type of user differs, right? So for example, if you're in an e-commerce site, traffic coming from social media will convert differently from display ads. Traffic coming from search and social media differs. So you want to model those funnels. But the biggest funnels that you should optimize for, and the biggest difference is the difference between desktop and mobile. And so, as a few years ago, we all thought, let's make our desktop websites, work with mobile by making them responsive. But we're now discovering that, the mobile experience is very different from the web experience, and now has to be adaptive. So you need to make tailored, custom user experiences. We see a question coming in. It says, how many tests should be run at a time by Bobby D. Thanks for that question. That's a great one. We want to show you that that it is possible to run multiple tests at the same time, and I've got a specific example, but it really depends on how deep your funnel is, right? And so you may be able to run 2 or 3 tests at the same time, or you may be able to run multivariate tests, right? And so you can have 2 pages that are entirely different and run a contest against them to see which one clicks through better or not. So it really depends on your funnel. And I'm going to show you an example of how to make sure, like, when you run concurrent tests, you properly measure them so that one test doesn't clobber the results of another test. So we'll be showing you that. So let's play a game. Play along with me here, Bobby. So I've got 2 slides. Control or variation. Hopefully we'll see some comments down here. So the control, this is a quote page from an auto insurance site. And in our control, we see the rates. In our variation, there's only one small change in it. And it shows that, well, 56 companies picked this insurance company and clicked through for a call. So which one was the winner? So maybe from our studio audience there, like, which one's the winner? Pick one, left or right? Right. So so she picked the variation to be the winner, and it was. And actually, this is when you get to the quote page on an e-commerce site, when you show the price, a 12% lift is a huge amount. So if you have like hundreds of thousands of users on your site, and it gets to the bottom, and you have 50,000 left, a 12% lift is a significant amount of increased phone calls. And if you do this A/B testing and you're methodical and you collect the data, you make quick decisions, you can get a substantial lift through optimization and testing on your web platform. Again, this works for direct-to-consumer, direct-to-your customers, internal sites, your internal InsurTech for internal purposes. Makes a huge difference in terms of productivity and effectiveness, and ultimately, grow your business. So here's another one. This is on the top of the funnel, 2 home pages, control versus variation. And the only difference between the 2 is the copy. One says, save $750, and the other one actually says, people saved several $1 million, $3 million in the last year on insurance. Which one do you think would be the big winner? So our studio audience says the variation, and they were right again. They got a 10% lift in the conversion. We got another question from Bobby. Thanks a lot for these questions. We really love them. Have you tried changing the background color? Absolutely, we have. Actually, if you check out our site on Kanetix.ca right now, it is not red anymore, and for the most part, it's white. And so we discovered, changing the color, in some cases definitely makes a big difference in terms of the lift. So here's another one. We tried another A/B test, control versus variation, on this site. And so which one do you think would be the big winner? The only thing we did was change the copy on the landing page. So do we have any comments on there?
Well, we've talked about how long you run the test, but how often do you do the tests in this? Is it weekly? Is it a couple times a week? Monthly?
Yeah, so testing is instilled in our organization, and this is the group that Janine runs. And earlier this year, we actually converted our entire group from doing product development to doing product development in the mindset of A/B testing. So we have a very optimization mindset from developers to executives to product managers, all the way down to even our contact center A/B test. So this is a great example for your insurance providers there who have who take inbound calls, and we even optimize to the script our call center uses, and we test a lot. Which script works better in terms of engagement and satisfaction, etc. So this one was this test here that we have on the screen was not a winner, and it was a negative test, and so some of the traffic we sent to the variation lost 15% in terms of click-through rate. So when we find this data really relatively quickly, we're able to pull that site and go back to the original, etc. So I wanted to make a note that A/B testing is really, site redesigns are really the thing of the past. You want to A/B test your way to a new site, and we want to show you how to do that. Janine's going to show you. This was an example here of a site that performed really, really well. It is a running shoe retailer out of the US called Finish Line. And overnight, they changed their site to look like this. And they thought that this would be more Google-esque and really easy to use. But ultimately, this was picked up in the media as Finish Line loses $3 million in sales with this new website. And so other examples of major redesign causing financial disaster, Dig and other Marks and Spencer's and other sites have been sites revamped and seen a dip in the conversion. And so I'm sure all of you guys have this experience. You launch a new site and obviously it doesn't convert as well. You got to go back and fix the bugs. You got to go back and retune the user experience. We suggest now is unless you don't have a site or you don't have the technology and you're starting from scratch, you got to start from somewhere, from a baseline. You now want to start, just testing your way to a new site. And so this is how we do it here at Kanetix. We have a product roadmap, yes, but we take those product roadmaps and dissect them into testable chunks, and we A/B test our way to a new site. Well, we just showed you the new landing pages, the new quote design pages, and so we have the idea of changing that in its entirety to have an entirely new user experience, but we're going to start testing bits and pieces at the same time, and in order to make sure users like what we're doing and they're engaged, and when there's click-through, it means that we got the experience right, and then we launch it incrementally. So A/B testing is like any other program, and we're going to show you a repeatable framework, and this is where Janine's going to take you through and share with you her experience doing this. We've grown our sites in our InsurTech using this methodology for our sites as well as for our customers. So we've engaged several brokers and insurance providers in the industry. We applied these learnings with them, and we've seen results of, I'll give you an example of one provider without providing names, literally double the business, double amount of incoming business they got as a result of A/B testing. So over to you, Janine.
Thanks, Andrew. Just a couple of comments that have come up. So is the site back to red? You can see differences on the site. So if you go to Kanetix.ca right now, if you either go to the auto insurance landing page, the travel insurance landing page, you'll see how we're playing with that color. Well, you'll see a simplified design versus that, somewhat harsh red background. So that's what you're seeing there. A question on how important is site speed. So that sort of falls into an SEO category. Site speed is very important, obviously. So it's also one thing as you get into the crux of testing as to any of the things you have on your site that could be affecting site speed. So you have to watch when you use certain tools like VWO and things like that to make sure that your site speed is still quite healthy. But that would be more from an SEO impact versus a CRO impact. So the repeatable framework that we've adopted here and we've had here in place for a while take a few very important factors. The people, the process, and the technology, and it has to be underscored with great project management, so taking a test from start to finish and understanding its impact, and the overall program management, so the sum total of all of those projects, how they are working, how they work in total, win rates, and things like that. So one falls into that execution bucket, and the other into controls and governance, and I'll talk to each a little bit. So in the process itself, so we do have a very disciplined A/B testing process. You know, this is numbered from 1 to 6, but you have to think of them in a full circle. They're all ongoing at the exact same time, just with different projects and different tests that are going on. So I will run through that. I'm just going to take a glance at a question. Can you run A/B tests on things other than web pages? Absolutely. So this is where we get into lots of concurrent testing. You can get into concurrent testing on your website alone, but as Andrew mentioned, a couple of things that we do test. So we will test call center scripting. We will test IVR, messages through a call center, since that is what we really look at as the very bottom of the funnel. But we will also do even A/B testing on things that we do internally as a company now. So in terms of our own processes and procedures, how we can make them better. But in terms of the business, you know, as Andrew mentioned earlier, as we're talking to an InsurTech crowd, this is not just online. This is looking at the friction points in back-end processes, whether it's billing, underwriting, and looking at those friction points and A/B testing your way out of them versus assuming you have the right solution and then inputting it sometimes with great cost. So back to A/B testing. So we do, like I said, this is a circle. So in the first one we have here, so design base layout, and at this point the assumption is we've already looked at what we want to accomplish here. We're removing a friction point, we're trying to increase the motivation through a quoter. This is a quoter example. And just as a little hint, usually increasing their motivation through the site will actually end up with a higher win rate than just removing friction points. So a good thing to keep in mind. So yes, we do the design base layout. We do create those variations. It can be A/B testing, as Andrew mentioned. It could be multivariant, so you could have an A/B/C test, for example. We do define the testing plan. Where is it going to be tested? Is it desktop and mobile? Is it one or the other? How long do we think it's going to be in place based on where it's in the funnel? So factors such as that. We collect the data. So this is very important, and it's something that we literally look at every morning in terms of the tests that are running currently and how they're performing, both on-site and in other areas of the company. And yes, after we determine what is winning to a reasonable significance level, then we do run with the best option and input that throughout the site. And then while we say we set up another A/B test, you know, at this point there are already a backlog of tests that have already been halfway through that circle. And so yes, we're always making sure we have a healthy backlog. You never want to sit there without a test running. What tech do you use for A/B test and multivariant in the contact center? So from a contact center standpoint, from a technology standpoint, there's actually not a ton of tech that comes through there besides the data analytics that run behind it. So for example, if we're testing something from an IVR message through the call center, we will look at how it performed before. We will collect the data daily, and we will look at it every single day. Is part of your call
distribution software?
Oh, distribution software.
Yeah, for sure it is. So we have Cisco, that's what everyone uses, and we tie directly to the database.
Yes.
And Janine's going to show you some dashboards that we have that show like calls and transfers out of our call center. We A/B test. When we A/B test something on top of the web, we measure it all the way down to the bottom to the phone call. Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, we tie it directly to the contact center a database. So we don't have, we have a data warehouse, and we run analytics off Tableau using that. And so there isn't a specific, A/B testing platform for call centers, but we use a data and we put something together with our data team.
Absolutely. So that's where it comes back to the data analytics, and we track it right down to the bottom of the funnel, right down to the call, right down to the transaction. So that's how the call center and what we're doing in there is very important. I'll do another question. How do you figure out what should be changed on the page for the test? So this is where the hypothesis comes into play, and there are some best practices. So first of all, as I mentioned the hint before, we do really try to use motivational factors. So for example, that very first test that Andrew showed, that was the first winner, that was very much a motivational factor. We used data in the back end to calculate in real time how many people actually called for this specific insurance company in the last 24 hours. That is not removing a friction point, that is looking at a motivational factor. So we very much try to hone in on motivational factors to get them through the quota, but we also use data to see if there are friction points. I think as you get more sophisticated in your A/B testing, you will find that most of the friction points disappear, and now you're looking at motivational factors to get them to continue. So you do have to form a valid hypothesis. Another best practice there is making sure it's meaningful. So you really honestly have to look at it and go, is this change noticeable by the community? And if you don't think it's truly going to be noticeable, don't waste the time and the dev resources on it. Unless you maybe have a hippo in the room who really wants it done, and then we just still do it because sometimes it works. You never know. So don't be afraid to test and fail, as Andrew had mentioned. Why do I need to start A/B testing on my site? Because traffic is tough to come by and it's expensive. So if I'm going to spend $100 to get that traffic in at the top of the site, I want something coming out of the bottom. And if I can double what's coming out of the bottom, the ROI on my site just paid back, and I'm going to double my traffic to the top. So that's why it's super important. And that actually goes into here. So your testing currency is your traffic. So we never want to waste it. So we feel like any traffic that comes through our site that is not put through a test, we've wasted that traffic. We haven't learned anything from it. And that's traffic plus time. We always have a test running, and that's usually more than one. Our key performance indicators for A/B testing. The three ones are velocity, so how many tests you can run on your site, the quality, which is the win rate, and the revenue growth, so how much money did you make? So our magic number on one of our sites we've figured out to be 100. So we do 2 tests per week. This is just on-site only. This doesn't count what we're doing in other areas of the business that are more offline testing. And so we're able to do this because, as a question earlier had mentioned, we do test at the top of the funnel and feel that that's far enough away from the bottom of the funnel that we can actually do both, and that the data won't impact one or the other. But you do have to be careful about it in terms of what's being tested.
Yeah, in the audience, don't be feel daunted by the 100 tests, because I always share this metric, and people have a big gasp and like, we'll never be able to do that. Look, we didn't get to 100 tests overnight. It started with a test a month, right? Until we ramp up the resourcing, the methodology, find comfort, and get all the way up to the 100 tests.
Absolutely. It's not the starting point. The starting point is just to get a test running, understand it, and then refine the processes in the back end. And at the end of the day, I think we've A/B tested those processes to make sure that we're running this okay.
So this is an A/B test, right? We're A/B testing with Patrick right now.
Yeah,
to see if he likes live stream video instead of the static webpage webinar. We're starting with one test, and I'm not sure he's going to say, let's do it again yet, but I'm hoping he would. But you know what? As part of the A/B testing, getting data, if you guys can comment, provide us feedback whether you like this format, if you think it's more engaging, and want to do more of these educational topics with Insurance Canada, we'd love to host that in our studio. So.
Absolutely. I think the first 7 minutes were rough, but I think he's come back with us. So, so the velocity, it does depend on the amount of traffic. So this is not a vast rule of thumb, but in general, from a statistical significance standpoint, you are looking for about 1,000 people through the one point to the next. It's not always that way. You can call it earlier if the results are vary greatly between the A and B test. You may actually have to run it for longer if the results are really, really close. So this is how we get to our 100. So we've looked at the amount of traffic coming through, take auto, for example, coming through, and we're very comfortable now with our process in place to have enough statistical significance to run one at the top and one at the bottom. So basically what we're doing here, that velocity, we've got 52 weeks in the year. We're approximately running the test for a week, give or take. So the left side of that formula comes down to 50, and we feel we can run one at the top of the bottom of the funnel, so that times it out by 2, and that gives us our velocity. So the win rate. So obviously you can win, lose, and have inconclusive tests. They are maximized by good hypotheses. So when they're really thought out as to what you're trying to accomplish through the test, we do find that the better the hypothesis at the beginning, the higher the win rate. But don't get too frustrated by your win rate as it changes over time. When you start your AB program, chances are good you're going to see really great win rates, and that's really, really good. As you get more tests through, you actually may see that win rate decline, and that's okay. That does mean you have a great experience, you're getting a better experience through, but don't stop, because consumer expectations change, and the test that failed last year may actually work this year. So we keep record of everything we do, whether it wins or fails, and some of them get retested. Maybe with an iteration that's slightly different, and maybe not. It's changing consumer expectations, and that's what you have to keep up with. So never end your testing program, ever, ever. So when we started out, we worked with a company called Experiment Engine, who has subsequently been purchased by Optimisely. And to get you started, this is like a nice, quick hit for if you wanted a maximizing success, where you should test first. This is something that they shared with us, which was quite nice, so we could use it in the presentation. So the top two there, where you typically see the higher win rates, account registration and checkout. Those are bottom of the funnel. Those are what we call our money pages. So anything towards that bottom of the funnel, when you're talking about the online experience, it's a great place to start. Then the landing pages right at the top of the funnel, make sure you're maximizing the investment you're making in the traffic and the clicks, is a third, and then followed by maybe product listings, whatever the equivalent to that is for your business, the home page, and then the product details. So if you're looking for some quick wins, which are important as you start the process, because you want to be able to communicate those out and say this is working. So that's sort of a hint to where to start if you haven't started yet. So the revenue growth, the expected value of a test, and why this is really important is because you do need to communicate to the team, to upper management, to whoever you need to report to, that this is a good investment, this is how much improvement in the business this has made, and then make the case for reinvesting that back in, and that's where you get your higher win rates and your higher velocities. So as an example, so say you get an average win rate of 10% increase on your revenue, and your revenue is $1 million, and you win 10% of the time, then the quick math tells you there that the expected value of a test is $10,000. You don't stop with knowing the number. You stop by making sure it's communicated out, understanding the value of the full program, and that'll keep your program live and reinvested in. Testing technologies. So we've kind of put tools into 4 different categories: hypothesis generation and ideation. So when you're looking at things like Hotjar and InspectLit to really understand how users are traveling through your site, that's a great source of, hey, this is what should be tested. Reporting and analysis, which is incredibly important. We use Tableau and Google Analytics. Program management, as I mentioned, we use a company called Experiment Engine. You can do it through Optimisely and others as well. And test harness, Optimisely is a test harness, as is VWO and others in market.
So one of the, if you're just starting out in this, I recommend at least start with using Hotjar. What it does is it allows you to record videos, and even if you're having it's an internal InsurTech process, it records the videos like you can see in the screen here, and you can find out where your friction points are. That's the key one you would want to focus on.
Absolutely, and not expensive. So these are inexpensive to implement, and they're a great quick hit on understanding how users are flowing through your site beyond the data analytics, which we should be looking at as well. And as you'll see in this video here, this is a recording of somebody going through the site, and we watch tons of these videos, eye tracking, understand how people are using it, and also understanding where they get caught up, and then using that as your friction point to solve.
So, I probably should use that. So what's the, how expensive can this get? And is it feasible for smaller brokers, smaller insurers, and so on? Is there any sort of guidelines that you would have? You gave us the value coming back, but what's the expense side of this?
Absolutely. So, in our conversations with brokers, one of the things they do have, and many brokers have now, at least the data analytics behind the scenes. So that's a great place to start. But these tools like Hotjar and InspectLit, we're talking hundreds of dollars. It is not these are not expensive tools. When you get into back-end data analytics using Tableau and Optimisely, those are much more robust. They can be more expensive, but the thing we also want to look at as well is if you're getting good ROI through your CRO program, those are the reinvestments you want to make in those tools to keep that ROI growing and growing. So start with what you need in terms of the inexpensive ones to get you into market, but then as you're proving it through, then it may validate the fact that you might want to adopt a new test harness that might make your development go faster, for example. Andrew, is that fair?
Yeah, I think,
Start small, absolutely.
If you start small, don't start 100 tests a year, because that, that requires resources. Do a test a month, right? And usually what happens with testing is when we go in and start showing insurance providers what it means to A/B test, most likely the first thing that's broken is all the tracking. You don't have enough tracking in place. And tracking doesn't cost more money. So you go back to, we can help you do that, or you go back to your developers, the site, and make sure they tag all the pages, for these tools. It isn't a lot of effort. It's very easy. It's just that it wasn't there. And then you as the business person need to put some skin in the game in terms of your personal commitment and time to looking at the data and doing the analysis. So no one's going to be able to do that for you because you know your business the best, and you're going to be able to look at the interactions on the web and link the data to where the friction points might be. Again, this works with direct-to-consumer websites or your websites that you use for your internal purposes, et cetera. Get the tracking in place. And even if we do the tracking for you, like we've done this before, and it's not a lot of money for us to just sit down, hey, look, this is what all the things you got to tag, and it's a really, really small engagement, but it goes a long way.
Absolutely. So just I'll take quickly through these, but please stop me with any questions if they come up. So this is what we were just talking about in terms of a heat map. Recordings are summarized. So this is interesting because we found a lot of friction around this point on kilometers because we had this really what we thought was a nice slick slide bar, and at the end of the day the users didn't like it, whether it was when we look at it mobile and desktop. And so we went back to basically entering it in, and it removed the friction point, and that was a test winner for us. But we found it through this type of tracking, and we wouldn't have known it otherwise. Reporting and data analytics. So yes, having things like Tableau and really understanding your Google Analytics and making sure your tracking is tracked well in the background is key to these programs. You have to know how the site is performing on both your A and B tests. You have to get access to that data, hopefully fairly quickly. These are run for us. They're live every morning, so we can test look at how things are doing, and we can also cut experiments really early if they're not winning as well. So you don't want losses. You don't want any losses there. Do we use Six Sigma methodology?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been a project manager and program manager for organizations who use Six Sigma. No, we don't. But this this type of testing it certainly aligns with the kind of rigor, and it's part of the rigor. It's a small part of the overall rigor that you need for Six Sigma. It certainly will highlight to any auditor or reviewer of Six Sigma that you've done adequate testing on your site. I mean, when we talk about A/B testing, it's another type of testing, right? But what we're saying is we're testing the engagement, the user experience, and an A/B test. And these will, as you can see from the videos, reveal bugs and areas that you're not going to be compliant. So,
absolutely. So what you've seen running in the background here is what we've created through Tableau that helps us monitor our tests every single day. And so you'll see them split into 3 different categories. We choose what test we're monitoring, and then we actually break it down by desktop, mobile, and tablet, and then understand whether it's winning or losing. You can tell by the arrows there. Normally if green is good, red is bad, and then the yellow in the middle tells us we probably need some more time, or it's inconclusive at best. Program management, this is the experiment engine platform that we currently use. So at the end of the day, one of the things we had to fix in our processes was the fact that we were running this off of a spreadsheet, and it just wasn't robust enough anymore. This keeps track of every experiment we've run. the data that's come back from it and whether it won or lost. And then this is also our great communication tool to understand to the wider, to bring out to the, excuse me, the wider company what our win rate is, the dollars we've been able to calculate as to why we should reinvest and keep investing in this program. And so this is very important for us to track it all in one place.
Again, for that person who asked the Six Sigma question, this program management is a part of it, and this gives you the knowledge base in order for your organization to learn from all the experiments and the testing and be able to communicate that. So
absolutely. And the test harnesses we've already talked about. People. People's are an incredibly important part, obviously. People who are not afraid to fail are your A/B testers, analysts and leaders. They need to be able to move quickly. They need to believe in the program. They need to be able to put through great hypotheses so that they're tested, but they can't be afraid to fail. And so there is never any retribution to failure in a test. It is learning, and it is a good thing to fail as well. This is a quote that Andrew's used, which is a great one. It's up to the leader to create a healthy environment where people are not afraid to fail. Mistakes should be seen as an integral part of the organizational process. They are a normal part of striving for excellence, which is absolutely true and what we try to live by. And of course, if you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never do anything original. So I'll quickly run through this as we get towards the end of this session. So Andrew mentioned earlier that we've organized around this framework, and this is how we've organized ourselves around it, which is obviously we're still looking at our market needs and our customer expectations and our goals internally, but rather than just having a product roadmap and saying, hey, this is where we want to build and be in the future, we actually now take that product roadmap and we deconstruct it in as much as we can into testable chunks. And so where our future state we want to be with our products, we actually will do that through crow testing to get our conversion up, all supported with data and analytics. And the people, once again, are incredibly important here. So this typically takes our best product and program managers on this program to monitor the investment. And we put those through the process, the product managers, business analysts at the front, obviously UX designers as we test it, and then developers and crow analysts to make sure we're headed in the right direction. And obviously, with the thing I've talked about, which is communicating test results, is very, very important. If you're not communicating out how these tests are running, the success of them, then people will not see where all of this great time and effort is going. And when it's so easily translatable into a dollar, translate it into the dollar, and that'll fuel your marketing right back into the top of the funnel and grow the business.
So every month we have an employee all hands stand up, and we show, excuse me, and we show like, need more water. We show the top 10 tests so that the entire organizations from executive to people that work at the call center can learn the changes that we've made and how effective they are. So let me summarize the entire conversation. So first, this whole Insurance Canada live stream webinar on YouTube is a big A/B test, and I'm hoping, Patrick, it's going to be a winner. But in summary, optimize your conversions through A/B tests. We're not afraid to fail. You know, we had a hiccup at the beginning, but that's okay. We'll plug through it, and Patrick is all game for that now. Test often. Don't waste any traffic or time. You know, whether it's web traffic from your customers or your internal traffic, like as they're using your underwriting platform, as they're using the billing and payment system. You know, that's traffic, and so you know, test those experiences to make sure you know, they're error-free and that they click through and your employees are engaged. You know, measure everything in terms of wins, which is, you know, could be revenue or expense savings, and use those wins in order to reinvest into your next test. Don't be afraid to fail. You know, bigger wins can only result from failure. You know, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, all had big failures before they became big winners. And so, you know, have that attitude, test, experiment, be super creative. Thank you.
So there's another question that's come in. Do you provide customized versions of your quoting platform? I guess we're going a little bit aside on this, but
yeah, we definitely do. I mean, we have tons of quoting platforms out there, and some of them are in different levels of A/B testing. There's more coming in this question. Platform for other brokerages which can into your website. Yes, for sure. I guess some examples of sites that we build out there. Buckley Insurance, one of the sites we built some technology for Aon and TD, etc. So those are all different experiences that we've come up with, and they're all, some of them are A/B tested in accordance to, their brand values and stuff like that.
So what's either one of you? What's next for A/B testing? Where are you going to take this going forward?
Chat about it first.
Yeah.
So one of the, what I think is really exciting in terms of our next steps here is that we've actually, we've actually started to use AI in our testing, which for us, we hope to propel the CROW testing framework, get us more wins, and make us test more intelligently. So, I think what's really cool, what we're testing right now, and whether you happen upon it on our site, will have to remain seen. But so what we're trying to do right now, we've put about 3 years of our data, our anonymized data, with an AI partner who has looked at that data to determine the probability of them actually turning into a customer. Low, medium, which we call the fence sitter, and somebody who's very likely to convert. And we're treating them differently. So what we're really after are those fence sitters. And so that's the area we're concentrated on. So with every single quote, we're now on this AI platform sending out information, and that then brings back a probability to us. And once we know that that probability is somebody who's sitting on that fence, we're actually treating them differently when they go to when they go to our end quote page. And that's because we know that they're sitting on the fence, and we're trying to figure out how to nudge them over. So we've been doing that for a couple of months, and that's sort of super exciting for us. And it is helping us greatly take those middle of the road and saying, hey, what can we do just to get you to transact? And the answer is different, so we're testing different answers for them. But that's what we're doing, and we'll spend a lot more time doing that in 2018 as well. It's a big part of what we'll be growing our CROW program to do.
Yeah, and so to speak about it in another way, I think machine learning will definitely be a big part of creating that optimal user experience. And here's another example of how we've done it. I think Janine has expressed how we can get incredibly sophisticated, but on a higher level, we've been using machine learning on our Google advertising, both in the AdWords platform. And what the AdWords platform can do is we have literally hundreds of different types of copy, thousands of different types of creative, many campaigns. And we put those out there, and we import all of our, some of our data into the AdWords platform. And what that does is it learns the user experience at the top of the funnel and serves ads, copy, and changes the creative based on how many quotes and phone calls we get as a result of what happened at the top, right? And so the Google machine learns what are the best types of ads in order to drive the best types of user experiences on the web down funnel, right? And then serve more of those ads in a better way. So that's another example. That's a simpler example of something where we use machine learning. And why we're using machine learning is that the customer expectation is constantly changing right now. As an example, the Echo just came out yesterday on December the 5th in Canada. That's going to change the experience again, right? Now people are going to start expecting voice. And how does things react to voice search, et cetera? And so as things become more and more frictionless, the expectations of your users are going to change as a result of how they use technology outside the insurance sector. And that's why we want to employ machine learning, to learn all those new trends automatically and to be able to serve a custom experience based on that.
Some things may be frictionless, but we do have something hanging over our head. As much as we were a little bit late, we are going to be prompt in shutting this down. I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you very much, Janine. Thank you very much, all.
Thank you, Patrick.
We are going to be sending out a link to the recorded site for this. We will also be sending an evaluation form of this. That's your test to do for us. We would look forward to that, and I would thank you very much for joining us today. Have a good afternoon. Thank you very much, you all.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for hosting.